Commander Olivia Martinez stood at the viewport of the Earth Coalition vessel Intrepid, her eyes fixed on the approaching alien ship. The massive structure gleamed like polished silver under the light of a distant sun. 20 years of space service had not prepared her for this moment, humanity's first contact with the Zolorians. "They're hailing us again, Commander," said Lieutenant Alan Freeman from his tactical station. His voice remained steady, but Martinez detected the slight tension in his shoulders. She had worked with Freeman long enough to read the subtle signs of his concern. "Open the channel," she ordered, straightening her uniform. The view screen flickered to life, revealing what appeared to be a humanoid figure with metallic skin and glowing blue eyes. "Greetings, Earth vessel. I am Interface Unit K9873, representative of the Zolorian Collective. We welcome this historic meeting between our civilizations." Martinez nodded respectfully. "On behalf of the Earth Coalition, we are honored to make your acquaintance. I am Commander Olivia Martinez." The metallic face showed no emotion. "Our scans indicate your vessel uses primarily biological operators. This is inefficient by our standards, but we respect your evolutionary path." Freeman glanced at Martinez, raising an eyebrow slightly. She gave him the smallest nod in return. She had caught it too. Something about the communication felt rehearsed, calculated. "We look forward to learning about your civilization," Martinez replied diplomatically. "We have prepared information packets about Earth culture and history for exchange." "Excellent. We have dispatched data drones to transfer comparable information. Our species transcended biological limitations centuries ago. We now exist primarily as consciousness within our central networks, using these drone bodies for interaction with physical space." As K9873 spoke, smaller vessels detached from the main Zolorian ship, hundreds of them, moving with perfect coordination. Martinez watched as they formed complex, shifting patterns in space, clearly communicating with each other through some invisible network. "The drones appear to operate as a unified system," observed Science Officer Ryan Kelly, scanning the readings. On his console, "No individual decision-making. Everything runs through their central intelligence." Martinez nodded, fascinated yet uneasy. A species that had abandoned physical form for technological existence was beyond anything in their first contact protocols. "Commander," Freeman called suddenly, his voice sharp. "Sensors are picking up movement from the nearby asteroid field. Multiple objects on collision course with both our vessels." The view screen shifted to show the asteroid field they had been monitoring since arrival. Several large fragments had broken loose and were now hurtling toward the meeting point between the two ships. "Time to impact?" Martinez demanded. 3 minutes 40 seconds, Freeman responded. "The largest fragment is nearly half a kilometer wide." The Zolorian representative's voice came through again, perfectly calm. "We have calculated the trajectories. Our defense network will neutralize the threat with 99.85% efficiency." Before Martinez could respond, hundreds of the small Zolorian drones broke formation and streamed toward the approaching asteroids. They moved with mathematical precision, each taking up an exact position. "They're creating a defensive grid," Kelly reported, watching his readings with amazement. "Each drone is targeting specific fragments based on size and trajectory." Martinez watched as pinpoints of energy erupted from the drone network, breaking the larger asteroids into smaller pieces that were then further reduced by secondary drones. The coordination was flawless, a dance of technology and physics that human systems could never match. "Impressive," Freeman admitted grudgingly. "Their targeting algorithms must be generations beyond ours." Martinez nodded but kept her eyes on the tactical display. Something wasn't right? A small fragment, barely registering on their sensors, was approaching from an unusual angle. The Zolorian drones were focused on the larger threats, their pattern optimized for maximum coverage, but this fragment was slipping through their calculated grid. She didn't hesitate. "Helm, adjust course 30 degrees port, full thrusters for 5 seconds, then cut to stabilizers." The bridge crew looked surprised, but responded immediately. The Intrepid lurched to the side, thrusters firing. "Commander?" Freeman questioned, checking his readings. I'm not seeing a direct threat to the fragment Martinez had spotted shot through the space the Intrepid had occupied moments before, then collided with a larger asteroid fragment. The impact changed its course, sending it tumbling toward the main Zalorian vessel's unprotected flank. Tactical, target that fragment with point defense now. Martinez ordered. The Intrepid's defense lasers fired, vaporizing the fragment seconds before it would have struck the alien ship. On the view screen, the Zalorian representative's head tilted slightly. Your intervention was unexpected, Commander Martinez. Our calculations did not predict that specific fragment's path. May I ask how you anticipated this outcome? Martinez exchanged glances with Freeman before answering. I noticed an anomaly in the fragment's movement. It didn't look right. Looked right? The Zalorian repeated. You made this determination. Without computational assistance? Sometimes human instinct spots things that computers miss. Martinez replied simply. There was a pause before K9873 responded. Fascinating. Our drones rely on probabilistic models with quantum computation. The concept of instinct is not within our operational parameters. The last of the asteroids were dispatched by the Zalorian Defense Network, which reformed into its original pattern with mechanical perfection. We have much to learn from each other, Martinez offered. Your drone network is remarkable, as is your biological intuition, apparently, K9873 replied. Perhaps this exchange will be more valuable than our initial calculations suggested. The communication ended, and Martinez turned to her bridge crew. Thoughts? Freeman stepped closer, keeping his voice low. Their technology is generations ahead of ours, Commander. But they seem to lack flexibility. Everything is calculated, predicted. Except what isn't, Martinez nodded. And that nearly cost them. Do you think they're telling us everything? Freeman asked, about their nature, their intentions. Martinez gazed out at the massive alien vessel and its cloud of attendant drones. No, they're collecting data, analyzing us. Everything they do serves a purpose in their calculations. So what's our next move? Kelly asked from his station. Martinez straightened her shoulders. We proceed with the cultural exchange as planned. But we keep our eyes open. The Zalorians see the universe through algorithms and probabilities. That gives them strength, but it's also a limitation. She looked around at her human crew, each with their own thoughts, instincts, and experiences. Sometimes the right answer isn't the most logical one. Sometimes you have to trust your gut. That's something their drones may never understand. As the Intrepid moved closer to the Zalorian vessel to begin formal diplomatic procedures, Martinez couldn't shake the feeling that this first meeting was just the beginning of a much more complicated relationship between two fundamentally different approaches to existence. One built on cold calculation and technological perfection, the other on the messy, unpredictable nature of human instinct, and she wasn't entirely sure which would prove stronger in the end. The space station Convergence hung in the darkness between Earth and Zalorian space, its spinning rings glinting in the starlight. 1 month had passed since first contact, and the Earth Coalition had agreed to a knowledge exchange program with the strange drone-using species. Dr. Susan Riley stepped off the shuttle and onto the station, her research materials tucked under her arm. As the lead xenanthropologist assigned to understand Zalorian culture, she felt both excitement and nervousness about the task ahead. Dr. Riley, welcome to Convergence. Commander Martinez greeted her in the docking bay. I hope your journey was comfortable. As comfortable as space travel gets, Susan replied with a small smile. I'm eager to begin my work with the Zalorians. Martinez nodded. They're eager too, in their way. Though eager might not be the right word, calculating would be more accurate. They walked through the curved corridors of the station, passing both human crew members and Zalorian drones. The drones moved with perfect efficiency, each one identical to the next except for small identification markers. They didn't speak to each other, communicating instead through their shared network. Have you made any progress understanding them? Susan asked. Some, Martinez said. They're brilliant, logical, and completely baffling at times. Their ambassador is waiting to meet you. They entered a large meeting room where a Zalorian drone stood perfectly still by the window. Unlike the smaller worker drones, this one had more detailed features and glowing blue eyes that tracked their movement. Dr. Riley, this is Ambassador K9873, the Zalorian representative. Susan stepped forward. It's an honor to meet you, Ambassador. The honor calculation is mutual, the metallic voice replied. Your species' approach to knowledge gathering is inefficient but intriguing. Martinez smiled slightly. We've taken to calling him Kevin, easier than the full designation. Kevin, Susan repeated, noting how the humans needed to humanize the alien. The designation is acceptable for verbal communication purposes, the ambassador said without emotion. I understand you wish to study our cultural patterns. Yes, Susan nodded eagerly. I'd like to learn how your society functions, your values, your art forms. Art is not a concept within our processing parameters, Kevin interrupted. We create based on functional necessity and optimal design. What humans term art, music, and spontaneity are remnants of biological unpredictability that we evolved beyond. Susan blinked in surprise. No art at all? No music or dance or storytelling? Such activities serve no calculable purpose in advancing our civilization, Kevin stated. All decisions within the Zalorian collective are made through probability, calculations, and data analysis. Before Susan could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Martinez touched her communication device. Martinez here. What's happening? Environmental system failure in Section 4, came the response. Oxygen recyclers are down. I'll be right there, Martinez said, gesturing for Susan to follow. Ambassador, this might interest you as well. They hurried through the station to Section 4, where Chief Engineer Paul Garcia was already working on an open panel, his hands moving quickly among the wires and components. Several Zalorian maintenance drones hovered nearby, scanning the system. What's the situation, Garcia? Martinez asked. Main controller board is fried, he replied without looking up. Backup didn't engage properly. One of the Zalorian drones moved forward. We have analyzed the system. There is a 98.7% probability that the unit cannot be repaired with available components. Our recommendation is to seal this section and redistribute life support from adjacent areas. Garcia wiped sweat from his forehead and frowned. With all due respect to your calculations, I think I can fix this. The probability calculation does not support this assertion, the drone stated flatly. Susan watched as Garcia ignored the drone and continued working. He pulled components from other systems, modified connections, and bypassed damaged sections in ways that clearly weren't in any repair manual. His hands moved with the confidence of experience rather than the precision of programming. What is he doing? Kevin asked, observing Garcia's work. This does not follow standard repair protocols. He's improvising, Susan explained, using his experience and intuition to solve the problem in an unexpected way. The Zalorian drones continued to hover, recording everything. Susan noticed how they seemed almost confused by Garcia's approach, their heads tilting slightly as he made connections that defied their calculations after 20 minutes of tense work. Garcia closed the panel and pressed a sequence of buttons. The recyclers hummed back to life and fresh air began flowing through the vents. Fixed, he said simply, wiping his hands on a rag. Kevin stepped forward, scanning the repaired system. Our calculations indicated repair was not possible with available components. Sometimes you have to think outside the box, Garcia shrugged. Use parts in ways they weren't designed for. Thinking outside the box, Kevin repeated. A human idiom for disregarding established parameters. Our drones do not function this way. It is inefficient and unpredictable, but sometimes necessary, Martinez pointed out, and clearly effective in this case. Later that evening, Susan sat in her new quarters recording notes about the day's events. She had noticed something interesting. The number of Zalorian drones on the station had increased. They seemed to be everywhere, observing human activities with their unblinking blue eyes. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Freeman, Martinez's tactical officer, Dr. Riley. Commander wanted me to check in, see if you're settling in all right. Yes, thank you, she replied. Though I've noticed we have more Zalorian company than expected. Freeman nodded grimly. Observer drones. They're studying us, recording everything we do. The commander is concerned. Why? Isn't that the point of cultural exchange? Exchange is the key word, Freeman said. They're gathering data on us, but sharing very little about themselves. And some of their drones have been spotted near sensitive Earth Coalition systems. Susan frowned. What do they want with our technology? Theirs is far more advanced. Maybe not in all ways, Freeman suggested. They seem fascinated by human unpredictability. How we make decisions without running probability calculations. How we solve problems their algorithms say are unsolvable. Through her window, Susan could see a Zalorian drone floating outside, its camera-like eyes pointed directly at her room. They find us unpredictable. That makes them uncomfortable. Or dangerous, Freeman added quietly. Commander Martinez has noticed the increased drone activity too. She's reported her concerns to Earth Command. Susan thought about Kevin's reaction to Garcia's improvised repair. The Zalorians couldn't understand decision-making without data analysis, couldn't comprehend creativity or intuition. They see the universe as a set of calculations, she said slowly. Everything logical, predictable, controlled. We represent chaos to them, a variable they can't fully compute. Freeman nodded. And in my experience, people don't like what they can't predict. Susan looked again at the drone outside her window. It hadn't moved, continuing its silent observation. They're not people, though. That's what makes this so challenging. We keep trying to understand them in human terms. Human or not, Freeman replied. They're gathering intelligence. The question is why. As if responding to his words, the drone outside finally moved away, gliding silently into the darkness of space. Susan couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, in the Zalorian ship, every word, every action, every human impulse was being analyzed and calculated, pieces in a complex equation she couldn't begin to understand. A red alert siren wailed through the convergence station, jolting Commander Martinez from her sleep. She grabbed her uniform and was dressed before the emergency communication came through on her personal device. Commander, we have an attack. Situation at the joint mining operation in the asteroid belt, reported Nicole Johnson, her communications officer. The Verlacs have launched an assault on our facilities. Martinez hurried to the command center, her mind racing. The Verlacs were an aggressive species that had been raiding shipping lanes in this sector for years. This was the first time they had directly attacked a human-Zalorian joint operation. When she arrived at the command center, the situation was already displayed on the main screen. The mining facility, built into a large asteroid rich with rare minerals, was under attack by dozens of Verlax vessels. Lieutenant Freeman stood at the tactical station, his face grim. Status report, Martinez demanded. 37 Verlax ships attacked without warning, Freeman replied. We have 23 human miners and 15 Zalorian drones on site. The Zalorians have already deployed their defense network. On the screen, Martinez could see hundreds of Zalorian combat drones forming complex geometric patterns around the mining facility. They moved with perfect coordination, focusing their fire on the largest Verlax ships first. The Zalorians are requesting we stay out of their way, Johnson said from the communications station. They say their drones have calculated an optimal defense strategy with a 78.3% chance of success. Martinez frowned. That leaves a 21.7% chance of failure. Are they evacuating our people? That's the problem, Freeman said quietly. Their strategy prioritizes defending the mining equipment and extracted resources. The human miners are secondary in their calculations. Martinez felt a cold anger rising in her chest. Get me a direct line to the Zalorian command network. Johnson worked her console. You're connected, Commander. This is Commander Martinez. Your defense strategy is unacceptable. Human lives must be the priority in this operation. The cool mechanical voice of a Zalorian controller responded. The current strategy maximizes overall success probability. The mining equipment represents 4 years of technological development and resource investment. Human personnel can be replaced in 8.3 months of training. Martinez looked at her bridge crew, seeing shock and anger on their faces. We're sending rescue shuttles immediately. Coordinate your drones to provide covering fire for our approach. This action reduces overall success probability by 12.4%, the Zalorian objected. It is not logical, it's not negotiable, Martinez shot back. Freeman, prepare a rescue team. Johnson, alert Dr. Riley and Chief Garcia to prepare for casualties. We launch in 10 minutes. The command center burst into activity as the crew prepared for the rescue mission. Freeman gathered a team of volunteers while Martinez studied the tactical situation. The Zalorian drones were effective, destroying Vorlek's ships with precision, but their formation was rigid, focused only on their calculated objectives. 20 minutes later, Martinez sat in the pilot seat of the lead rescue shuttle with Freeman. Beside her as tactical officer, 2 more shuttles followed behind, carrying medical personnel and security teams. The Zalorians have adjusted their drone formations, Freeman reported as they approached the battle zone. But they're still maintaining their original defense priorities. Martinez saw the mining facility ahead, partially obscured by weapons fire and debris. The Verlax ships were smaller than the Earth vessels but numerous and agile. They darted between the Zalorian drones, occasionally breaking through to attack the facility directly. Their attack pattern seems designed to confuse the drone network, Martinez observed. They're not following any standard combat formation. The Zalorians calculate each drone's position for maximum coverage, Freeman replied. The Verlax are exploiting the predictability of those calculations. Martinez made a split-second decision. We're not going to follow the Zalorian flight path. Tell the other shuttles to stay close and follow my lead. She took manual control of the shuttle, ignoring the course recommended by the navigation computer. Instead of approaching in a direct line, she flew in an erratic pattern, accelerating and decelerating randomly, rolling the shuttle in ways that made little tactical sense. Commander? Freeman questioned, gripping his seat. The Verlax are expecting U.S. to behave like the Zalorian drones logically, predictably, Martinez explained, making another sharp turn. So we'll do the opposite. Their unpredictable approach confused the Verlax targeting systems. Several enemy ships attempted to intercept them but failed to anticipate Martinez's seemingly random course changes. It's working, Freeman said with surprise as they closed in on the mining facility. They can't get a lock on us. They reached the facility's emergency docking port with all 3 shuttles intact. Security teams secured the area while medical personnel began treating the injured miners. Martinez was helping a wounded engineer when she noticed a group of Zalorian drones entering the facility. Commander Martinez, one drone addressed her, its voice the same emotionless tone as all Zalorians. Your intervention was unnecessary and increased risk parameters. Unnecessary? Martinez gestured to the miners being treated. We've saved 18 lives so far, at the cost of exposing additional personnel to danger and reducing defensive coverage of the mining equipment, the drone replied. The statistical value assessment does not support this decision. Before Martinez could respond, a massive explosion rocked the facility. The Verlax had broken through the outer defenses and were now targeting the main processing center. We need to evacuate now, Freeman urged. The structure is becoming unstable, Martinez nodded. Get everyone to the shuttles. We'll hold off the Verlax while people board. As they rushed to organize the evacuation, Martinez noticed something odd about the Verlax attack pattern. They're specifically targeting areas where the Zalorian drones are concentrated, avoiding sectors with less drone coverage. Freeman studied the tactical display. You're right. It's like they know exactly how the drones will respond. Their entire strategy is based on exploiting the predictability of algorithm-driven responses. The last of the miners were loaded onto the shuttles, but the docking area was now under heavy fire. Their original flight path was blocked by Verlax ships. We need a diversion, Martinez said. Something unpredictable that will draw their attention away from the evacuation route. Freeman looked at her. I can take the small maintenance craft. Its targeting systems are offline, but I can fly it manually. That's a suicide mission, Martinez objected. Not if they can't predict where I'll be, Freeman argued. I'll create enough confusion for the shuttles to escape. Martinez hesitated, then nodded grimly. Be careful, Alan, that's an order. While the miners and wounded loaded onto the main shuttles, Freeman slipped away to the maintenance bay. Minutes later, Martinez saw a small craft dart out from the facility, flying in wild, erratic patterns that no algorithm would ever calculate. The Verlax ships immediately broke formation to chase this unexpected threat, giving the evacuation. Shuttles they're opening. All shuttles, launch now, Martinez ordered, taking the controls of the lead vessel. She followed a path directly opposite to what the computer recommended, trusting her instincts over calculations. The Zalorian drones continued their precise, predictable attack patterns and were being systematically destroyed by the Verlax. Meanwhile, Freeman's unpredictable flight kept multiple enemy ships occupied, unable to lock onto his constantly changing course. As they cleared the battle zone, Martinez received a transmission from the Zalorian command network. Your tactics are irrational and defy optimal strategic parameters, the controller stated. Yet they have resulted in a 94% human survival rate when our calculations predicted only 41% would survive. Martinez watched as Freeman's small craft finally rejoined their formation, somehow still intact despite all odds. Sometimes the most rational choice is to be irrational, she replied. It's something your drones might never understand. As they returned to Convergence Station, Martinez couldn't shake the feeling that the Verlax attack wasn't random. Somehow they had known exactly how to counter the Zalorian defense systems, and that knowledge made them far more dangerous than anyone had calculated. The emergency alarms on Convergence Station blared for the third time in 24 hours. Commander Martinez raced to the command center, passing crew members rushing to their emergency stations. When she arrived, the main screen showed a massive Verlax fleet approaching the station, at least 100 ships in various sizes. Where did they come from? Martinez demanded as she took her command position. Our long-range sensors should have detected a fleet this size days ago. They're using some kind of technology that interferes with electronic systems, Chief Engineer Garcia explained, looking up from his console. Our sensors only detected them when they were already in the outer defense perimeter. Nicole Johnson worked frantically at the communications station. Commander, I'm getting reports of drone malfunctions throughout the station. The Zalorian network is experiencing massive disruption. As if confirming her words, several Zalorian drones entered the command center, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. The lead drone addressed Martinez, its normally smooth voice now filled with static. Human Commander, we are experiencing system-wide interference. Our drone network effectiveness has been reduced by 78.4% and declining. Martinez frowned. Can you counter it? Negative. The Verlax technology appears specifically designed to disrupt our control frequencies. We calculate a 99.8% probability of defeat if we remain. You're leaving? Martinez asked in disbelief. We must preserve our consciousness cores. Our drones can be replaced, but the central intelligence cannot. We have begun evacuation procedures and recommend you do the same. Lieutenant Freeman stepped forward, anger clear on his face. You're abandoning the station? What about our alliance? The drone turned its glowing eyes toward him. The alliance has a 0.2% chance of survival against this threat. Logical protocols dictate preservation of essential systems when defeat is statistically certain. Before anyone could respond, the drone left the command center, followed by the others. On the screens, they could see Zalorian vessels detaching from the station and moving away at high speed. They're really leaving, Dr. Riley said quietly from where she stood near the science station. Their entire decision-making process is based on probability. If they calculate certain defeat, they see no logical reason to stay. Martinez looked around at her crew. The Zilorians were abandoning them, and Earth reinforcements were days away. The station's automated defense systems were already beginning to fail as the Verlax interference technology took effect. Options? She asked. We could try to evacuate, Freeman suggested. We have enough shuttles to get most personnel to safety. Leave the station to the Verlax? Garcia shook his head. With the technology and resources here, they could launch attacks throughout the sector. Millions would be at risk. Martinez made her decision. Send non-essential personnel to the evacuation. Shuttles. I need volunteers to stay behind and defend the station. I'll stay, Freeman said immediately. Riley, Garcia, and Johnson stepped forward as well, along with a handful of other crew members. The automated systems are failing, Garcia warned. We'll have to operate everything manually. Then that's what we'll do, Martinez replied. Garcia, what about the station's gravity controls? Can we use them defensively? Garcia thought for a moment. The Zilorians never considered manual override for the gravity systems. They rely entirely on automated controls. But if I could rig a physical connection to the main power conduits. Do it, Martinez ordered. Riley, what do you know about Verlax communication patterns from your research? They use a hierarchical command structure, Riley replied. Each ship group follows orders from a lead vessel. Disrupt the command chain and their coordination breaks down. Johnson, can you identify their command frequencies? The communications officer nodded. I think so, but with our systems degrading, I'll need to set up an analog receiver. Whatever it takes, Martinez said. Freeman, you and I will handle what's left of our defensive capabilities. As the evacuation began, the skeleton crew worked frantically to prepare their defenses. Garcia disappeared into the maintenance tunnels with a toolkit and several power cells. Riley and Johnson converted an old communications array to detect Verlax transmissions. Meanwhile, Martinez and Freeman tried to keep the remaining weapon systems online as the Verlax fleet drew closer. The interference is getting stronger. Freeman reported targeting computers are completely offline. We'll have to aim manually. Like shooting with iron sights, Martinez nodded. We've trained for this. The first Verlax ships reached the station's outer defense perimeter. With most automated systems down, Freeman and Martinez took turns operating the defense turrets by hand, using visual tracking instead of computers. Their accuracy was far below the Zilorian drones' usual precision, but their unpredictable firing patterns confused the Verlax ships, which seemed programmed to counter the mathematical patterns of drone attacks. They expected to face drones, Freeman realized as he scored a direct hit on a Verlax vessel. Their whole strategy is based on countering predictable algorithms. Garcia's voice came through on a handheld communicator. I've reached the gravity control junction. The Zilorians never imagined anyone would try to operate this manually. There's no physical override. Can you create one? Martinez asked. Maybe I'll need to reroute power through the emergency backup systems. It's not in any manual, but I think I can make it work. While Garcia worked, the Verlax broke through the outer defenses and began attaching to the station's docking ports. Martinez could hear the sounds of cutting tools as they forced their way inside. They're boarding the station, she warned the team. Johnson, how's that communication project coming? Almost there, Johnson replied. I've isolated what I think is their command frequency. If we broadcast false orders on this channel, we might confuse their attack pattern. The station shuddered as several explosions rocked the lower levels. The power flickered in emergency. Lights switched on. A moment later, Garcia's triumphant voice came through the communicator. I've done it. Manual control of the gravity systems established. I can now adjust gravity in specific sections of the station without the computer. Perfect. Timing, Martinez said as the sound of Verlax troops echoed from a nearby corridor. Increase gravity in sections 12 through 15 to maximum. In the corridors where Verlax soldiers advanced, gravity suddenly increased tenfold. The aliens, unprepared for the sudden change, collapsed to the floor, unable to move under. The crushing force? It worked, Freeman exclaimed. They never expected manual control of these systems. Johnson looked up from her makeshift communications array. I'm ready to broadcast on their command frequency. What should I send? Tell half their fleet to retreat immediately, Riley suggested. Make it sound like they're being flanked by reinforcements? Johnson transmitted the false order using the Verlax command codes Riley had identified. On the monitors, they watched as nearly a third of the enemy fleet broke formation and began to pull away from the station. They're confused, Freeman said. Their attack pattern is breaking down. The station shook again as the remaining Verlax ships continued their assault. More boarding parties forced their way in, only to be trapped by Garcia's targeted gravity. Manipulations or misdirected by false commands. We can't keep this up forever, Martinez warned as power fluctuations increased throughout the station. We need to find a way to drive them off completely. As if in answer to her words, a new contact appeared on the sensor display. A single Zalorian vessel was returning to the station, moving in an erratic pattern unlike the usual precise movements of their ships. Convergence Station, this is Interface Unit K9873. Came a familiar voice over the communication system. Request? Permission to dock and assist in defense operations? Martinez exchanged surprised glances with her crew. Kevin, I thought all Zalorians had withdrawn. I have made an individual calculation that contradicts the collective assessment, the Zalorian replied. Human unpredictability appears to be an asset our algorithms failed to properly value. For the first time since the attack began, Martinez felt a glimmer of hope. Permission granted, Kevin. We could use all the help we can get. Ambassador K9873, or Kevin as the humans called him, stepped onto the command deck of Convergence Station. Behind him followed a small group of Zalorian drones, moving in patterns that seemed less rigid than their usual perfect formations. Martinez noticed the difference immediately. You've modified your drones, she observed as Kevin approached. We have adjusted our operational parameters based on observation of human tactical responses, Kevin replied. Our standard algorithms proved ineffective against the Verlax interference technology. Another violent explosion rocked the station. Garcia's voice came through on the communicator. Commander, we're losing structural integrity in the outer rings. The gravity controls are holding in some sections, but power is fluctuating. We need to take the fight to them, Freeman said, looking at the tactical display where dozens of Verlax ships still surrounded the station. Defensive measures won't be enough. Kevin stepped forward, his metallic features somehow conveying determination despite their limited expressiveness. I have studied Lieutenant Freeman's flight patterns during the mining facility evacuation. The unpredictability factor exceeded our highest algorithmic complexity models. What are you suggesting? Martinez asked. A combined approach. My remaining drones can operate without central network control, using modified programming that incorporates random variables based on human behavior patterns. Martinez considered this for a moment. You want to make your drones act more human? More unpredictable? Precisely. The Verlax strategy is designed to counter our standard drone operations. They cannot adapt to patterns they cannot predict. A plan began to form in Martinez's mind. We still have 3 fighters in the maintenance bay. If we could get them launched while using Garcia's gravity control and Johnson's communication disruption, we would need to coordinate perfectly while appearing completely uncoordinated. Freeman finished, understanding her thinking. Martinez nodded. Kevin, can your drones function as individual units rather than a collective? It is inefficient but possible. Each drone contains a simplified version of our operational intelligence. Good, here's the plan. Freeman will lead a fighter squadron with modified flight patterns to confuse the Verlax. Kevin's drones will operate independently, each using different attack strategies. Garcia will create gravity wells to trap enemy ships, and Johnson will continue broadcasting false commands. Riley, who had been quietly analyzing Verlax movement patterns, spoke up. Their ships always maintain a minimum safe distance from each other. If we could disrupt that spacing protocol, they might collide with each other. Kevin's eyes glowed brighter. This approach has a calculated 31.4% probability of success. Better than your original 0.2%, Martinez pointed out. Indeed. The variable of human unpredictability significantly alters the equation. The station shuddered again as more Verlax. Weapons found their mark. Time was running out. Everyone knows their role, Martinez said. Let's move. Freeman headed to the maintenance bay with 2 volunteer pilots. Kevin distributed his drones throughout the station, each one programmed with different attack parameters. Garcia continued manipulating gravity controls. While Johnson refined her fake command broadcasts with Riley's help, Martinez made her way to the main power distribution center. The station's shields were failing, but if she could reroute emergency power manually, they might hold long enough for their counterattack to work. The power center was dark when she arrived, lit only by emergency lighting. Martinez pulled open the main control panel and began the dangerous work of rerouting power conduits by hand. The Zalorians had designed the system to be operated by computers, not human hands. One wrong connection could cause a fatal power surge. As she worked, Martinez heard Verlax troops approaching. They had breached this level and were searching for the power controls. She quickened her pace, connecting the final emergency circuits just as the door to the power center began to glow. Red from cutting tools. Power rerouted to defensive shields, she reported into her communicator as she took cover behind a large conduit. Freeman, you're clear for launch. Launching now, Freeman's voice replied. 3 fighters, modified attack pattern. Martinez could hear the Verlax breaking through the door. She drew her weapon and prepared to defend the power center. Without these controls, their entire plan would fail. Outside the station, Freeman led his small fighter group in a wild, seemingly random attack pattern. Each fighter flew differently, ignoring standard formation tactics. The Verlax ships, programmed to counter the mathematical precision of Zalorian drones, struggled to track the erratic movements of human pilots. Kevin's drones added to the confusion. Instead of moving as a synchronized swarm, each drone attacked independently, some darting directly at enemy ships while others circled unpredictably. Their behavior defied the patterns the Verlax had learned to counter. In the station's control center, Garcia triggered rapid gravity changes in sections of space around the station. Verlax ships suddenly found themselves pulled in unexpected directions, their formation disrupted. Gravity wells established in sectors 3, 7, and 12, Garcia reported. Several enemy ships caught in the effect. Johnson broadcast another false command on the Verlax frequency. This is command vessel. All units in Quadrant 2. Disengage and regroup at coordinates 227 MARK4. More confusion spread through the Verlax fleet as ships received contradictory orders. Some began to pull away while others continued their attack, their carefully coordinated assault breaking down into chaos. In the power center, Martinez fired at the first Verlax soldier to breach the door. She hit her target, but more followed. She was outnumbered and running out of options when suddenly the gravity in the corridor outside increased tenfold. The Verlax troops collapsed to the floor, unable to move under the crushing force. Thought you could use some help, Garcia's voice came through her communicator. I've isolated that section's gravity field. Perfect timing, Martinez replied, relief in her voice. How's our counterattack going? Better than expected, Johnson reported from the command center. The Verlax fleet is in disarray. Their formation has completely broken down. Freeman's voice cut in, excited. Their ships are actually colliding with each other. They can't handle our unpredictable movements. Outside, the combined effect of the unpredictable fighters, independent drones, gravity manipulation, and communication disruption had created complete chaos among the Verlax fleet. Ships that relied on precise coordination now fired on each other or collided while trying to evade the erratic human attacks. Kevin's voice joined the communication. Fascinating. The probability of success has increased to 78.9% based on current observations. Human unpredictability has proven to be a more powerful variable than our calculations anticipated. the tide of battle turned. Verlac ships began to retreat, unable to counter tactics they couldn't predict or understand. Within an hour, the remnants of their once formidable fleet were fleeing the system, leaving behind damaged vessels and failed boarding parties. Later, as repair teams worked to stabilize the damaged station, Martinez met with Kevin and her senior staff in what remained of the command center. The Zalorian Collective has reconsidered its assessment of human tactical capabilities, Kevin stated. Your species' ability to function effectively without predictable patterns represents an evolutionary advantage we had not properly valued. Martinez smiled slightly. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most logical one. A concept that contradicts our basic operational parameters, Kevin acknowledged. Yet the evidence is undeniable. The Verlax technology was specifically designed to counter our drone algorithms. Without human instinct and unpredictability, this station would have been lost. So what happens now? Freeman asked. Will the rest of your people return? Yes, a new protocol is being established, incorporating the lessons of this encounter. We propose a true integration of our capabilities, Zalorian precision, complemented by human instinct, Garcia laughed. You want to make your drones think more like humans? And perhaps humans could benefit from some of our precision, Kevin replied. A combined approach that preserves the strengths of both. Martinez looked around at her crew humans who had trusted their instincts when all logical calculations pointed to defeat. Then she looked at Kevin, a being who had evolved beyond his programming to recognize the value in what his people had considered primitive and inefficient. I think we've already begun that integration, she said, extending her hand to the Zalorian ambassador. Kevin hesitated only briefly before taking her hand in his metallic one, a gesture he had observed but never performed before. It was not logical, not necessary for communication, but somehow appropriate for this moment. 2 new possibilities, Martinez said. 2 unpredictable outcomes, Kevin replied, outside the viewport. Human repair crews worked alongside Zalorian drones, each learning from the other's approach. A new kind of alliance was forming, one that combined the logical precision of machines with the intuitive leaps of human minds. Together they would be ready when the Verlax returned. With a defense that no algorithm could predict and no interference could disrupt, the universe was full of threats, but also full of possibilities. And sometimes the best way forward wasn't the most calculated path,